Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I'm doing another batch of videos here, and I got a few questions I was going to answer. I got this question from Jeff, and Jeff actually he asked 3 questions. I'm gonna try to bullet through all of these questions here, but Jeff basically starts off by asking about an MBA. He says, what are your thoughts on the value of an MBA within the tech industry, assuming a top-ranked school, Harvard, Stanford, etc.? So that's an interesting question. So if you don't know what an MBA is, Masters of Business Administration, it's sort of, I want to say it's somewhat of a made fun of degree because there's a lot of MBAs, at least in the entrepreneurial field, there's a lot of MBAs that get their MBA and they really don't know what they're doing, don't have any business experience. But I've always liked the idea of an MBA because I think having business knowledge is good regardless of what field you're in. Because here's the thing, when it comes down to it, end of the day, right? All of us, whatever job we're working in, we are essentially working in a business, right? It's all business related. We're doing stuff for business. If you understand business better, you're going to understand how to do your job better. You're going to understand where your job fits into the bigger scheme of things, how money is made, how business is run, and that's really, really important. It's some skills that I didn't acquire later on or until later on. But I can imagine earlier in your career, especially if you're thinking about doing anything entrepreneurial, but even if you're working for someone else, understanding how business works and kind of the basics of it, even if an MBA program is kind of, really, I don't know how to describe it, but not to the ground, like not realistic to how most businesses are running, and they're looking at these big case studies with these huge corporations and whatnot. It's still going to be valid. It's still going to be good. So I think it's good, right? I don't think you should, think, oh, I need to get an MBA. That's not true. But I think it makes sense, right? It's going to help you. An MBA is going to help you. You can also get your own MBA by reading a lot of business books. So, again, this is where it's like I am sort of against traditional education because you're paying someone to spoon feed you stuff you can learn on your own. There's not a huge value. Now, when you mention here some of these more prestigious schools like Princeton and Harvard and stuff, obviously those are going to help you more, right? But I personally don't think that the cost is worth it. I don't think you're going to see a huge return on your value. I mean, some people are going to, but I wouldn't invest there. I can get a Princeton or Harvard education in business, I guarantee you, on my own, and it's not going to cost nearly as much. It might not be easy, but I could certainly do it, and anyone can do it, especially today. I mean, you can even take some of those classes online for free today. So yeah, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to these other questions to hit them a little bit quicker. He says also, I currently live in Canada, and I'm trying to work my way into U.S. tech industry. What kind of advice do you have for a non-U.S. citizen as they attempt to get employment with some of the tech hubs in the U.S.? So I'm a U.S. citizen, obviously, so I'm not going to have like perfect advice here, but what I would suggest is that you're going to have to show an extreme amount of value. It's going to be hard. I mean, most companies in the U.S., right, in order to hire outside of the country, they need a visa, like an H-1B visa. So that's going to be the difficulty there, which they kind of have to prove that they can't find anyone qualified. There's a lot of steps, and it typically is a higher cost. So they're really only going to, a lot of the motivation, I believe, in the industry is based on getting people at a lower price, right? Or like extreme experts in an area. By having an expert specialization that can't be found anywhere else, like I always talk about specialization, that's going to help you the most, right? Because then it's going to help the employer to justify a visa in that case, and it's also going to make them feel like they need your skills because you're the only one who has them. Okay, so moving on to the third one. Also, currently my desires are to get involved with the product roles, i.e. product managers, etc. What kind of skills, knowledge, and experiences do you think are best suited for this trajectory? So I would say if you're looking at like becoming a product manager somewhere in that space, this is almost kind of business analyst. In Scrum and Agile, right, as a product owner, what's really valuable, that's where having the business and the technical knowledge and joining them together, right? A really, really good product owner is someone who is first of all a good listener, who can hear, listen, understand things, and communicate and translate between the two sides to be able to say, look, here's the business case for this. This is what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to build this thing, to go to the technical team and say, hey, look, this is what they're trying to do. I'm translating this. This is what we actually need from you, and to communicate between the two sides. Not to play this little dance that a lot of project managers do, where they act like they're important because they're not really actually adding any value, right? They're just blocking. They're just becoming the block of communication where the engineers can't speak to the business people except through them, and they're creating their value from there, which is a non-value. It has to be synergistic. It has to create synergy, which means that you have to add value to both sides if you're going to do that. So I think, thinking about that, having that, this is where that MBA might come into play, and having a technical background, that would make you really good at doing this if you can make sure that you're actually adding value and not just becoming a block, right? You actually have to be able to produce value. And I find that very few people can do this. I tend to have a bit of a cynical approach towards these roles, as a lot of times I find them unnecessary, but they can be good if you can actually bring real value and be able to understand both the business and the technical side of it, and not just be just another person taking up space trying to find their value, instead actually producing the value. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Jeff, hopefully that's answered your questions. Got 3 of them here. So anyway, if you have a question for me, email me at john@simpleprogrammer.com. Try to keep it short if you don't mind. That makes it easier for me to read these and answer them. And I will talk to you next time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care.